Jojo Rosenbaum. He's the one that Kyle shot that night that started this whole mess to begin with. Now, his criminal past has been glossed over by almost everybody, but tonight we're going to find out what he did to those preteen boys in Arizona. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnnie Walker Dredd to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnnie Walker Dredd Show.
Joseph Rosenbaum moved to Kenosha 2 years ago. He met Carrie Ann Swart in 2019.
He really, really loved me. And when he loved deeply. He loved his family, you know. I mean, he was a very, wholehearted, genuine, put everything in, loyal. If your friend is in a fight, you're in a fight.
Raised in Texas and Arizona, Rosenbaum had a chaotic upbringing. His mother was sent to prison when he was 13. A family member molested him, quote, on an almost daily basis, according to statements he later made to law enforcement authorities.
Yeah, that's all sad and all, but I'm really getting kind of tired of having to take all this into account. You're responsible for what you do. Sorry.
Living in group homes and shelters, Rosenbaum began using heroin and methamphetamine. After a conviction for sexual conduct with minors at age 18, he spent more than a decade in prison.
So this arrest for sexual misconduct, we're going to find out more about that in the future, and you might want to bring your vomit bag when you hear it. And you might also want to take a gander at all of these offenses that he has accumulated while he was incarcerated. There is a ton of them, and a lot of it is assault on staff, arson.
A stretch marked by repeated disciplinary.
It's massive. This almost seems like a daily basis here.
Infractions, according to prison records. Rosenbaum struggled in Kenosha. For 7 months, he and Swart lived in a tent behind a shop before they moved into a motel.
When you live through such an experience like that with somebody, it's like 10 years. Like, I always say, if you can live in a tent with somebody and not end up hating each other by the end, okay, it's pretty good,
Well, might want to pick somebody where you don't have to live in a tent with them. That would be better.
Things, you got a pretty solid future.
Rosenbaum eventually proposed, but their relationship was marked by strife.
Kenosha 911, what's the address of your emergency?
On July 18th, Kenosha police responded to a call about domestic violence involving Swart and Rosenbaum.
Dude just basically went off, she's bleeding everywhere and bruises on her. And
according to court records and interviews with Swart and a witness.
Hey, let me go ahead and read this a little bit. I think there's a lot of detail in here that's kind of been glossed over. So this is a probable cause statement. Officer Bray of the Kenosha Police Department reported that on July 18, 2020, and around 2:24 p.m., she and Officer Glom responded to a call at this address, and I don't care about what the address is. Dispatch advised there was a male and female involved, and the female was bleeding from her face. On arrival, Officer Bray spoke with Carrie Ann Swart, who stated she and her boyfriend, defendant Joseph Rosenbaum, Jojo, had just gotten into a fight. While speaking with Ms. Swart, the defendant came out of the house and started yelling at officers and saying something to the effect of, "Just arrest me. I know that is why you are here." Yes, that's probably why they are there. Very observant. Ms. Swart told Officer Bray that she and the defendant have been engaged for approximately 1 year and have lived together for 1 year. Ms. Swart says she was looking through this defendant's phone and located pornography on his phone. Now, that's going to be interesting because based on his past criminal record, you're going to be wondering what that pornography was. Ms. Swart said the defendant just went off and started screaming at her. The defendant suddenly turned toward the shed in the backyard and began punching it. Okay. Ms. Swart said she told the defendant to go calm down and stop hitting the shed. A little lesson, if the guy is hitting the shed, just let him hit the shed. Don't tell him to calm down. That never works. Ms. Swart started to walk away from the defendant so she could go into the house. So she's trying to get away from him. The defendant ran in after her and started yelling at her, getting in her face. Ms. Swart said she put her arms up in front of herself to block the defendant from pushing his body against her. So he chased her. Gee, I wonder if that sounds like something that happened recently. What was it, in August maybe? Oh yeah, I think it was with Kyle Rittenhouse. I think, if I remember correctly, he chased Kyle. So let's go ahead and get back to the original video.
He got angry at one point in time, you know, suffering from untreated mental illness. So I'm not.
So he got angry at some time and chased after you and basically assaulted you. Okay, we'll have to remember that.
Excusing his behavior at all. Yeah, it happened. You know, absolutely, it was domestic violence.
Okay, so I will give it up to her. She's actually pretty honest. She's admitting what happened, and when she gets on the stand, that's not going to help the prosecution much. The defense is going to get up there and question her, and they are basically going to pull right on out of her the fact that good old JoJo has a tendency to be violent and chase after people.
On July 25th, Rosenbaum sent this text message to Swart. An hour later, he overdosed in front of a McDonald's in Kenosha. He called a crisis hotline.
I have a call from Med 4 Truck 7. Med 4 Truck 7 respond for an overdose at McDonald's, 7060 Green Bay Road, 7060 Green Bay Road, again for an overdose. Kenosha Fire Clear at 1655.
So he overdosed on gabapentin. I believe that is like a hallucinogen or something like that. Was it an epilepsy drug or something? I don't know much about it. I don't get into drugs, but that's what I remember.
He was actually in ICU for 5 days, and they did not think he was going to live.
Rosenbaum regained consciousness and on July 29th was taken to jail for violating the order to stay away from Swart.
A couple of things. First of all, they didn't think that he was going to live. This was a serious drug overdose, if that's the case. So that's one thing to also consider. Keep in mind also, he has violated a restraining order. So there you go. We got a domestic abuser who's violated a restraining order. JoJo not looking good here.
He was jailed for 3 weeks. Rosenbaum was released August 20th and spent a few days at CARE, a local mental health facility, before seeking additional help at the Aurora Psychiatric Hospital just outside Milwaukee.
Keep in mind, he's been committed to this mental health facility. This is only 5 days prior to the assault on Kyle Rittenhouse.
According to Swart.
He really just wanted to, you know, stay on his medication, stay on the right path.
Now notice the imagery we're going to see now. They're going to kind of scan around and show you about what's happened in Kenosha. That's going to play heavy on these jurors. They're not going to be shown these photos, but they've all seen it. They're all from the area.
On the morning of the 25th, the smell of smoke wafted through downtown Kenosha as the city braced for another day of unrest. At about 9 a.m., Rosenbaum called Swart and said he was preparing to leave the hospital, she said.
I don't necessarily think he wanted to leave, because when he called me and told me he was leaving, I'm like, really? He's like, I knew you were going to be shocked. He's like, I was surprised too.
Okay, so that's Rosenbaum. Here's Kyle, by the way, taking a picture of the damage that was done by rioters the night before.
Rittenhouse's group then went to a local high school to remove graffiti.
By the way, that is difficult graffiti to remove. That looks like a very porous concrete. You spray into it, it's really tough. You'd have to sandblast that, in my opinion. But there he is, old evil Kyle. Part of his conspiracy strategy is to paint himself off as somebody helping the high school by removing graffiti, but that's part of the evil plot.
That afternoon, the mental health hospital dropped Rosenbaum off on a Kenosha street, according to Swart. He went to the police station to retrieve his belongings from his stay in jail, but the station was shuttered because of the protests. He went to Walgreens to get medication. The store was closed.
but he had, you know, at least his morning and afternoon dose of medication, so he wasn't without medication.
So he wasn't without medication. Okay. That's not going to do well for the prosecution because they can't claim that, well, Joseph Rosenbaum was just simply acting out on his medication. No, he had his medication with him. He's just violent.
Rosenbaum was connecting with Swart at the motel where she lived and cleaned rooms. They talked for nearly 3 hours.
He seemed he was very apologetic.
Very common domestic abuse, right? Haven't you seen this before? Dude beats up his wife and then apologizes profusely. But it's going to happen again. Over and over and over.
He just really wanted to prove to me that he could be the person that I deserved.
There's probably 1 million domestic abuse victims out there that are just going, oh no, this sounds so typical.
About 9:40 p.m., Rosenbaum left Swart. She was adamant he couldn't stay with her that night, fearful he would be arrested for contacting her. Swart warned Rosenbaum to stay away from downtown and avoid trouble.
As far as that night, I have absolutely no idea why he was downtown. None whatsoever.
So, you see, this is going to pose a problem for the prosecution. She's going to get on the stand. The defense is going to ask her, do you think it was a good thing that Joseph went down to that protest? No. They would like to be able to make it to where Joseph Rosenbaum was there for good reasons and that Kyle, with his evil, sinister plot, provoked him into a fight. But she's saying here that her fiancé should not have been there. And not because he didn't belong there. It's because he's in a bad way. He'd just been released from a psychiatric hospital.
Rosenbaum shows up in videos just after 11 p.m. He is shouting at armed civilians at a gas station.
Now remember, this is the sympathetic figure here. This is the victim in the whole thing, and Kyle and his evil plot got him killed. Oh my God. Let's see how old JoJo holds up here.
And helping people push a flaming dumpster.
I won't show all the footage of him that night, but he is trying to start fights everywhere all night long. He is trying to instigate violence. He's berserk. I mean, absolutely berserk.
The images include Rosenbaum and Rittenhouse as they pass by each other without incident. Rittenhouse is filmed while standing on the edges of an armed group of men arguing with protesters. Rosenbaum, his shirt wrapped around his head, is looking on as well.
Why would you wrap your shirt around your head? Probably to conceal your identity, and that means you're up to no good.
Back away from the business! Back away from the business!
Police riding in an armored car break up the crowd. Rosenbaum leaves the area and is swinging a chain.
Swinging a chain. Could the chain be a weapon? Yeah, probably could.
Officers give water to Rittenhouse and those around him.
I kid. A chain is a very nasty weapon. You don't want to get hit with one.
Thank you! We appreciate you guys, we really do. Let's go!
Rittenhouse walks away from the car dealership to offer medical help.
Jojo Rosenbaum is not going around offering medical help. I guarantee it.
You said get off the car. Yeah.
Look how Kyle Rittenhouse there instigates a fight. Just wanting to kill people. Look how scared everybody is of him. Oh my gosh, they're running in terror because he's carrying that AR-15 rifle with the military sling.
Let it go.
What, yesterday or today?
Today. Dude, he just had up the gun. Talking about get off the car. Now he's talking about venom.
Well, why were you on the car? Good question.
Rosenbaum and Rittenhouse each make their way to a nearby gas station. Officers prevent Rittenhouse from returning to his original post.
That's big. Watch what happens here. Okay, so Kyle tries to go back to the car lot that's behind the police barricade. In other words, it's secure. There's nothing going on in the car lot. There's no turmoil, no nothing. Why would he be doing that if his real purpose was to go and instigate violence? Makes no sense at all. It's unfortunate that the police didn't let him go through the barricade. If they had, nobody would have been shot that night. Unless old Jojo Rosenbaum picked a fight with somebody else that had a weapon.
At 11:44, police scanners report people trying to burn vehicles at another lot owned by CarSource. Dispatchers urge police to use caution. At 11:44, police scanners report people trying to burn vehicles at another lot owned by CarSource.
That poor guy at CarSource, he had 3 properties under attack. 2 of them burned to the ground, both the car lots. Terrible luck. And by the way, insurance didn't pay for any of it. He's out $2.5 million. All those people out there, they say, well, they should have just remember that insurance will cover the losses. You don't understand. I have another video on that. The insurance doesn't quite work like that.
Dispatchers urge police to use caution.
We've seen at least 4 people with handguns running around here.
2 minutes later, Rittenhouse hurries away from the gas station holding a fire extinguisher. He slows to a walk. Rosenbaum, walking in the same direction, begins to run towards Rittenhouse.
Now, why would he do that? Why would he run towards Rittenhouse? Oh, yeah, because that evil Kyle has drawn him into a fight. A big, sinister plot. Man, that's a hell of a strategy. That's what people think, though. They think that Kyle somehow drew Rosenbaum into the fight.
Rosenbaum throws a plastic bag at Rittenhouse. Swartz said the bag contained items from Rosenbaum's stay at the hospital.
Well, we don't know what's in the bag. It may have been taken into custody. It may not have been. But just because it contained at one time some deodorant stick or something like that doesn't mean that something else could not have been in there. It's clearly not empty, but it sails way too far for it to be an empty bag. Okay, this is footage of Joseph Rosenbaum taken at the very moment that he begins to attack Kyle Rittenhouse. And this has been compiled by Chancey Long. A little shout out to her. Thank you, Chancey, for taking the time to put some light onto this subject. Logical Checkmate's another one who's put a lot of effort into making sure we understand what happened that night. I also recommend his video. I will have both these videos linked in the description below. But let's take a look and see sweet, sweet Joseph Rosenbaum and how he is attacked by that evil Kyle Rittenhouse with his plot to draw him into violence.
Oh man, that's not bad, dude. This would fuck somebody up. I don't think you can get much speed on it though. I know it feels like, but it's really, yeah, that you can. Thank you. It was legislative.
Okay, so now let's try this in a little slower motion.
Oh man, that's
There's Kyle right there running.
bad.
And now the girlfriend, or I think the wife of Joshua Zeminski there, is pointing at him. There's Rosenbaum taking chase.
This would fuck somebody up. I don't think you can get much speed on it though. I know it feels.
Look at this real slow.
Oh man, that's not bad.
That looks like an ambush. It looks like Joseph Rosenbaum was hiding behind something back here, and now he's coming out, and you see Joshua Zeminski's wife there pointing at him. Right here at this point, Joseph Rosenbaum needs to break off the chase. It is irresponsible for him to continue chasing. Kyle has given notice that he is breaking off contact and he's trying to get away. At this point, Joseph Rosenbaum, by chasing him, allowed Kyle to reassert his self-defense. That's Wisconsin law, and I'm sorry, I don't write the laws. That's the way they're written. Okay, so this is an archived report by the Washington Post. Remember, they have a pretty left-leaning bias here, but actually the stuff that they're going to put down here is not going to look too good for Joseph Rosenbaum. All right, so it says here, a mentally ill man, a heavily armed teenager. You see how they frame that up? Heavily armed, mentally ill, and the night Kenosha burned. Okay, so let's see. Cast by conservatives as a battle between Antifa agitators and a right-wing patriot. They put patriot in quotes. This summer's deadliest protest-related incident was not quite what it seemed. Yeah, we're going to find out. By the way, Robert Klemko and Greg Jaffe are the authors of this. So let's go through this. Anti-police brutality demonstrators were converging on Kenosha from all over Wisconsin for a second night of marches. Notice they don't say from all over the country or all over the Midwest. It's from all over Wisconsin. They're painting us that the protesters are only from Wisconsin. And why is that important? Because when they talk about Kyle, it's always about out-of-towners. You know, Kyle was from Illinois, out of state. They make a big deal about the fact that he was from out of state. He was not even supposed to be there. And so they're always going to paint the anti-police brutality people as being Wisconsinites, locals. Joseph Rosenbaum, depressed, homeless, and alone. Didn't belong to either side. Okay, well, that's a little bit disputable, but okay. I'll give him that. He had spent most of his adult life in prison for sexual conduct with children when he was 18 and struggled with bipolar disorder. Okay, it wasn't just sexual conduct. Well, we're going to see what he actually did, and it's pretty bad. That day, August 25th, Rosenbaum was discharged from a Milwaukee hospital following his second suicide attempt in as many months and dumped on the streets of Kenosha. He wasn't dumped on the streets of Kenosha. Basically, they discharged him. He may not have wanted to leave, but they discharged him. That's not dumping somebody on the street. His confrontation hours later with Kyle Rittenhouse, a heavily armed teenager who had answered the call for patriots, kicked off a chain of violence, the deadliest of the summer, that left Rosenbaum, 36, and Anthony Huber, 26, dead. See how they cast this? It is Kyle Rittenhouse, patriot, answers to call. There's a whole bunch of violence that goes off, and that leaves poor Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber dead. Not mentioning the fact that Rosenbaum and Huber were plenty involved in this. A third victim, you know how they use the term victim here, but I wish Judge Schroeder was here to straighten them out. A third victim, Gage Grosskreutz, 26, lost a chunk of his right biceps, but survived. Each of the three shooting victims was drawn for different reasons to the demonstrations that erupted after the August 23rd wounding of a black man, Jacob Blake, by a white police officer. Their lives forever linked by the bullets from Rittenhouse's assault-style rifle. Oh, I knew they were going to get around to something like that. Had proceeded along different routes, and each carried objects that shed light on their journeys and motivations. Grosskreutz, who attended close to 100 protests this summer, carried a medical kit, tourniquets, and a pistol. By the way, I think that I would have called it a semi-automatic handgun myself. Pistol sounds a little bit more, innocent sounding. Huber was attending his second protest. He carried his skateboard, a source of joy and affirmation during a depressing and, according to court documents, violent adolescence. So the skateboard is described like a teddy bear, as well as a cell phone to document one of the most consequential nights in this town's history. Rosenbaum had never attended a protest, Okay, so you see, he's not a BLM protester. He was there just to raise hell and seemed caught up in this one almost by accident. He carried a clear plastic bag containing a deodorant stick, underwear, and socks that the hospital had given him upon the discharge following his suicide attempt. In the seconds before he was shot, Rosenbaum threw the plastic bag at Rittenhouse and chased him behind some parked cars. Now keep in mind, we don't know what else was put in that bag. Maybe nothing. "Oh, he got a gun," a woman screamed of Rittenhouse. "He got a gun." Yeah, very good, woman. We know. He's got a gun. Oh, I love the header. "I want to fix things." Hours after he was released from the hospital, Rosenbaum stopped by a pharmacy in Kenosha to pick up medication for his bipolar disorder, only to discover that it had been closed early because of the unrest. Keep in mind, his fiancée said that he had his medicine, so you can't blame whatever happened here on that. He visited his fiancée, who was living in a cheap motel room, but she told him he couldn't stay the night. That's right. Something about a restraining order. She had pressed charges against him a month earlier after a fight in which he knocked her down and bloodied her mouth. If Rosenbaum violated his no-contact order, she warned, he could be sent back to jail. "I want to fix things," she recalled him telling her. "I want to get myself right." Well, how about not violating your restraining order? That's a pretty good way to start fixing things. She was open to reconciling. It's like, oh, stop doing these things. He's violent. He's on drugs. Bipolar. It's somebody else. "I just want you to be you," replied the fiancé. Oh, look at that nice innocent face you got there. The weeks leading up to Rosenbaum's death had been as chaotic as his life. Raised in Texas and Arizona, Rosenbaum met his father only twice and told his mother that he was molested by his alcoholic stepfather on an almost daily basis, according to court documents. One thing that permeates everything around here are just how screwed up these families are. There isn't a single nuclear family amongst anybody here. Even Kyle. When he was 13, his mother was sent to prison for 2 years, and Rosenbaum was sent off to a group home where he began using heroin and meth, according to court documents. By 18, oh my gosh, he was doing all this before he was 18. By 18, he was in prison for sexual conduct with 5 preteen boys. We're going to read about what happened there, and I'm going to give you a forewarning on that. The children of people who had taken him in after his mother told him to leave her house. So these people brought him into their home, and he raped the boys living there. He spent most of the next 14 years behind bars. Not long after he was released in 2016, he met a woman in Arizona and fathered a child, but the relationship didn't last. Yet another broken home. When the woman fled to Kenosha, Rosenbaum chased her. So it's like she's trying to get away from him. And so she moves all the way to Kenosha, Wisconsin, and he followed her. Sometimes he posted pictures of his daughter on Facebook. "That is my little princess," he wrote in September 2019, a few months after arriving in Kenosha. "She is a daddy's girl all the way. I miss her so much." Okay, that sounds kind of sweet. 3 months later, he wrote that he was still struggling to see his child. "I got to fight to get custody," he posted. "I'm trying to get her back." Well, your violent past probably is what's stopping that. At the time, he and his new fiancée, whom he met in a Wisconsin hospital, were braving the winter in a tent they had pitched in an overgrown lot behind an abandoned department store. Lady, you gotta do better than picking guys like this. Rosenbaum had bought her engagement ring at Walmart and proposed on one knee in the middle of a busy sidewalk. That was JoJo. He was just goofy and kind of rapey. He'd make you laugh out of nowhere. They spent their days at nearby fast food restaurants where the staff sometimes gave them free meals. At night, Rosenbaum, his fiancée, and her cat huddled under piles of blankets. We lived off each other's body heat. You know, if you would actually get a job, you might actually be able to afford like electricity and get real heat. In the spring, the police confiscated their tent. Yeah, when you pitching a tent out there in a lot, after a while, the authorities are going to come over there and say, yeah, you got to move on. So they slept for a while behind dumpsters in town. Eventually, the county social services department helped them get a room at a cut-rate motel, where a sign by the front desk offers $2 condoms, and one in the room warns no refunds after 10 minutes. Oh, jeez. Nice place. Are you kind of getting the picture? Rosenbaum did odd jobs for the owner, who complained in an interview about his shoddy work. Yeah, I can see that. He probably did about as well as the other homeless do when they wash her windshield. Aside from one supervised visit, he never saw the child for whom he had moved to Kenosha. He saw his child once, under supervision. The courts looked at this dude and said, we don't want this dude anywhere near kids. In June, he attempted suicide by overdosing on pills. A month later, his fiancée confronted him after finding pornography on his phone. Rosenbaum body slammed her, according to police, who took him to jail and then released him. So, okay, one of the problems I would have is, I wonder what's the nature of the pornography on his phone, given what he's done in the past. I don't know. Maybe that might be of interest. And another thing is, they just released him. I mean, they took him into jail, booked him, and then released him. So he's right back out on the street again. 1 week later, Rosenbaum called a suicide crisis line. Police found him vomiting and having convulsions outside of McDonald's. I bet the staff at McDonald's really appreciated him, having him around. He spent a few days in the hospital, followed by a few more days in jail for violating the no-contact order with his former girlfriend. Then he was sent for more treatment to the mental hospital in Milwaukee. 2 hours before he was killed, Rosenbaum left his fiancée's motel room and caught a bus for downtown, where a second night of protests had erupted. Why did he go there? You say all the time that Kyle didn't belong at the protest. But Kyle was protecting property and delivering medical aid. What was he there for? He wasn't protecting property, he was trying to burn it down. And he wasn't trying to give people medical aid, he was trying to inflict injury on them so they would need it. He wasn't down there as a rioter or a looter. Oh, I don't know. I mean, it looks to me like he's trying to push a burning dumpster into a gas station. That's kind of rioting looking. Why was he there? I have no answer. I ask myself that question every day. It's clear why he's there. He's trying to get into a fight. He's trying to fight with everybody around him. In videos from that night, Rosenbaum often appeared agitated. Are they insane? The man was berserk. All night long, he was burning things and trying to get people to attack him. And calling people the N-word. He did a lot of that too. At one point, it appears that he told somebody that they needed to jack up these people with the guns and take their guns from them. And, according to Ryan Balch, he threatened to kill Kyle and Ryan if he ever caught them alone. Remember, this is your sympathetic character. When a member of the Kenosha Guard, a self-proclaimed militia, pointed his gun at him, Rosenbaum became enraged and dared the man, who was white, to kill him. Shoot me. Okay, we heard that on video a million times. Several protesters rushed to calm Rosenbaum. He's so violent that even the people that are around him, these are, the other fellow protesters and even rioters, are trying to calm him down. You're going to get us all shot, one of them recalled telling him. At 11:45 p.m., Richie McGinnis, a reporter with the conservative Daily Caller, make sure that we put the word conservative in front. Spotted Rosenbaum, his t-shirt wrapped around his head, chasing Rittenhouse down the street. It's unclear what provoked the confrontation, though Rittenhouse's attorney speculated in a video released last week that Rosenbaum may have mistaken the teenager for a similarly attired member of the Kenosha Guard he confronted earlier at the gas station. My theory is that he really didn't need much provocation. He was looking for a fight anywhere he could find it. Rosenbaum pursued Rittenhouse down Sheridan Road and into the parking lot of a car dealership that would soon go up in flames. That poor Admiral Kidry. Gosh. He threw his hospital bag at Rittenhouse, missing him, and charged at the teenager. Someone nearby fired a shot. Blank use, someone else screamed. Rosenbaum tried to grab Rittenhouse's rifle. Oh no, can't do that. So let me give you a little PSA for all those people out there who think you can grab a guy's rifle if he's carrying it. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's an assault. And can you use deadly force to prevent somebody from taking your rifle from you? Yes, you can. Rosenbaum, his eyes open and nose bloodied, lifted his skull slowly off the pavement as if trying to speak. Then he lowered his head and shut his eyes for the last time. I wonder what he was trying to say. Something like, that kid, don't try to take his rifle. That's probably what it was. It was a PSA that he was giving out to everybody. Don't try to take Kyle's rifle from him. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get those words out. And if he had, maybe Huber and Grosskreutz wouldn't have messed with Kyle, but unfortunately he passed away before he had the opportunity. And now we're going to get into Anthony Huber, but that's for another day. Now, let's talk a little bit about what Rosenbaum did. Okay, this is brought to you courtesy of Wisconsin Right Now. Let's take a look at this. These are sort of a watchdog kind of newspaper, but they've been spot on with everything they've done so far on this case. Joseph Rosenbaum, sex offender, criminal complaint from Arizona. Look what we've got here. Newly released documents obtained by Wisconsin Right Now from the Pima County, Arizona Clerk of Courts confirm Joseph Rosenbaum was charged by a grand jury with 11 counts of child molestation and inappropriate sexual activity around children, including anal rape. See, the way they describe it elsewhere is sexual contact, but it's a little bit more than that, isn't it? The victims were 5 boys ranging in age from 9 to 11 years old. Wisconsin Right Now has obtained Rosenbaum's entire file regarding the case. However, due to victim privacy and legal issues, we are choosing to only show the criminal complaint at this time. We redacted the names of the victims. No contact with minors under the age of 18 without permission from the court, records say. I think I would have amended that. I think I would have said, no contact with minors ever. By the way, it says here, Wisconsin's largest newspaper, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, argued that readers shouldn't get to know Rosenbaum's criminal record. Read our column explaining why they're wrong here, and I have a video on that as well. In my opinion, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel is running interference for Rosenbaum. These are the offenses that landed Rosenbaum 36 on the Wisconsin Sex Offender Registry. And I'll skip ahead here. Because of the self-defense accusations, Wisconsin Right Now has made the decision to tell readers about the criminal histories of the men who were shot. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's hear it. Let the truth arise. What was Rosenbaum's criminal history? He had an open Wisconsin case for misdemeanor bail jumping that was filed on July 30th, 2020. Rosenbaum also had open misdemeanor cases for battery, domestic abuse, and disorderly conduct, domestic abuse. He was on the Wisconsin Sex Offender Registry for an Arizona offense. He no longer appears on it because he's deceased. That's the child molestation case. The 11 charges were amended in a plea deal, and Rosenbaum was convicted of amended counts. According to online court records, Rosenbaum was sentenced to 10 years on December 12, 2002 for sexual contact of a minor, and then sentenced to 2 years, 6 months for sexual contact of a minor related to the same 2002 incident. These are serious charges here. Rosenbaum was convicted on August 8, 2016 for interfering with a monitoring device. He was put on lifetime probation on December 16, 2002. However, the court was asked to revoke his program after he was accused of consuming synthetic cannabinoid and alcohol, failing to participate in sex offender treatment, and having accessed sexually oriented materials deemed inappropriate by the probation officer. I wonder if that is kind of similar to the stuff that his fiancée found on his cell phone. All right, here we go. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to back it up here a little bit. This is graphic. This is disgusting. And if you don't want to hear it, by all means, turn off the video now, okay? But if you have the stomach for it, let's go through it. I really don't want to have to read this. However, hey, we have a young kid who is now being accused of all kinds of crimes and stuff and could go to prison for a long time. So guess what? Sometimes we just have to have the truth. And let's do it. Joseph Rosenbaum, sex offender. 11 counts include, count 1, public sexual indecency to a minor under 15, a class 5 felony. On or about the month of February 2002, whatever, Rosenbaum committed public sexual indecency to a minor by intentionally or knowingly committing an act of sexual contact by masturbating, while, name of the kid removed for obvious reasons, while the kid was present. So basically, Rosenbaum masturbated in front of him. Count 2. That's the least serious of the crimes. Count 2. Sexual conduct with a minor under 15. Class 2 felony. A dangerous crime against children. On or about the 27th day of March 2002, Joseph Don Rosenbaum committed sexual conduct with a minor by intentionally or knowingly engaging in an act of sexual intercourse with the victim by penetrating the victim's anus with his penis. Well, we know what that is. That's just called rape. Count 3. Furnishing obscene or harmful items to minors, a class 4 felony. On or about the 27th day of March 2002, Rosenbaum, with knowledge of the character of the item involved, recklessly furnished, presented, provided, made available, gave, lent, showed, advertised, distributed an item harmful to minors. Maybe he did it all to some minor under 18, to wit, photographs of nude women, including their genitals. Okay, so he gave nudies to some young boys. Count 4. Public sexual indecency to a minor under 15. On or about the 27th day of, okay, I'm getting kind of tired of reading that part. Committed public sexual indecency to a minor by intentionally or knowingly committing an act of sexual contact by masturbating while the victim was present. So again, he did it again, masturbated in front of a kid. Count 5. Sexual conduct with a minor under 15, a class 2 felony, a dangerous crime against children. Rosenbaum committed sexual conduct with a minor by intentionally or knowingly engaging in an act of sexual intercourse with a victim, a minor, by penetrating the victim's anus with his penis, so another rape. Count 6. Sexual conduct with a minor under 15, a class 2 felony, a dangerous crime against children. Rosenbaum committed sexual conduct with a minor by intentionally or knowingly engaging in an act of oral sexual contact with a fourth victim, a minor, by inserting his penis into the victim's mouth. So basically, raped a kid orally. Remember now, these are kids 9 to 11 years old. On or about the 27th day, Rosenbaum committed sexual conduct with a minor by intentionally or knowingly engaging in an act of oral sexual contact with another minor, did the same thing again. Okay, see, this is the second count of oral rape. They've got count 8 here, molestation of a child. Basically, he says here, intentionally and knowingly engaging in sexual contact a child under the age of 15 involving the genitals by touching the victim's penis with his hand. Count 9, molestation of a child. Basically the same thing. So this is another count of that. Count 10, molestation of a child, a class 2 felony, committed molestation of a child by intentionally or knowingly engaging in sexual contact with the 5th victim, a child under 15 years of age, involving the genitals by touching the victim's penis with his finger. Count 10, basically the same thing. That's the 3rd count of basically molestation. Count 11, on or about the month of March 2002, Rosenbaum indecently exposed his genitals to a minor under the age of 15. Basically dropped his pants. And so here are the actual documents. I actually had a hold of these at one point. Couldn't find them, but you can read them here. So yeah, pretty extensive list here. The court documents say that Rosenbaum had worked in the fast food industry, but was unemployed for 3 years. You know, it seems like those guys that were there that night had a hard time getting jobs. He had a 9th grade education and was from Waco. Glad he wasn't from Oklahoma. That's all I can say. He entered a plea agreement to admitted counts of sexual conduct with a minor in the 2nd degree, a preparatory dangerous crime against children. The other charges were then dismissed, but sex offender registration was required. Rosenbaum's Arizona prison disciplinary report shows a total of 40 infractions. And we mentioned this earlier. We have assault on a staff, possession of drugs, arson, throwing stuff, assault on a staff, possession of a manufactured weapon, probably a handmade knife, assault with a weapon, and disrespect. We asked the Wisconsin Department of Corrections if they had a Joseph Rosenbaum on the registry before, and they said yes. And they were notified he's now deceased. That's why he no longer appears on the registry. See their response to us here. The reason why they're mentioning this is because a lot of the anti-Kyles went on and started crowing that they couldn't find any problems with Joseph Rosenbaum as far as his criminal past was. One of the problems was they were looking at Wisconsin, but they didn't realize he had committed all this stuff in Arizona. And the other one is that he had pulled a lot of this stuff off because he had been killed. Here's his sex offender registration, and that's pretty much the gist of it. One of the victims that night was Rosenbaum's fiance. I mean, I get that you lose a loved one. She has to be able to do better than that. She seems like a really nice lady. She seems honest. Oddly enough, she seems pretty level-headed, although you got to wonder about her choice in men. You have a person who is on meth and heroin and suicidal, and he's bipolar, and he's got no job, and you're living in a tent with him. I mean, what the hell? And he did have a criminal background in Arizona. She did not know about that, apparently, and then found out about it after the shootings, and that must have been also shocking as hell. I mean, she's had a rough time of it. Wendy Rittenhouse is another victim of this whole thing. She has been totally castigated for no good reason. There's been a lot of people hurt by this. And Malkidri, he lost 2 dealerships there. They burned every car he has. He has no insurance, despite what a lot of people think. There's no insurance company that's going to come in and give him his money. He's out. He's probably bankrupt. So there's a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. So during the trial, one of the things that the jury is going to have to figure out is which is more likely, that Kyle is to blame for the shooting or Joseph Rosenbaum. Well, you know, you got to look at Kyle. Now, you had a fight during the summertime. That's been about it. Everything else about him seems to be real straight-laced. He's part of that big police thing. He likes law and order. He's there cleaning up the high school and things like that. And yeah, some of it's a little bit self-serving. I think he was doing some of that because he liked to post pictures of it on Facebook, you know, seeking affirmation. But there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, certainly if that's the least of your problems, then great. Overall, Kyle comes off as a pretty nice kid. I think that he got a little over his head, and I think he's a little bit naive. But overall, I can't see how he could be cast as the instigator of anything. And then you compare him to Rosenbaum, and you would have a hard time finding a bigger wretch of a human than this dude. Look at what he's done. He is violent. He's kind of known for chasing people down and assaulting them. And according to Ryan Balch, he threatened Kyle that night. Everything seems to point towards Rosenbaum being kind of the bad guy here. And so how are you going to get 12 jurors to come to an agreement and think, well, you know, Rosenbaum was the real victim here. It's that evil little 17-year-old. He's the one. I don't see it happening. Now, how much of Joseph Rosenbaum's past are they going to be able to discuss during the trial? Probably not the sex offenses. I would imagine that during discovery, certainly the defense is going to bring them up. And they're going to make a claim that his past criminal record is germane to the court proceedings, but I don't think that Schroeder's going to allow it. I think that they will probably consider that inadmissible. However, his treatment of his fiancée is definitely admissible. They're going to make a lot out of that. The very fact that he's violent, and he was violent within a very short period between the time that he assaulted her and the night in Kenosha. The fact that she tried to flee him and he chased after her, that's going to be a big deal. What about his violations while he was in prison? That one's a good one. I don't know. I can see it both sides. It happened a long time ago. And how relevant is that to what happened in Kenosha? Well, during the discovery, they're going to argue that, and it'll be up to Judge Bruce Schroeder to decide. Keep in mind, this is why a judge is so important. The judge gets to decide what's admissible and what's not. Typically, judges will kind of lean towards the defense. They're the ones that are going to appeal, not the prosecution. The fiance's claim that she advised him not to go to the protest, but he went anyway, is going to be big. That's going to be talked about quite a bit. Keep in mind, a lot of people said Kyle did not belong there that night. Well, he didn't either. In fact, he was told not to go. He went anyway. And while Kyle can make a claim that he was there to protect property and deliver medical aid, he can't. In fact, I cannot think of any reason why he was there other than to just raise hell, to cause pain and suffering. And the members of the jury are going to look at Joseph Rosenbaum as the kind of the person that torched their neighborhoods. You're trying to get all 12 of those people to line up alongside Rosenbaum? Good luck with that. Like my video and subscribe to my channel.